We have some breaking San Francisco 49ers news on this Sunday afternoon. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr. Hope you're all having a great Sunday and you've all had phenomenal weekends. That breaking news, the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks, who a week ago today in Super Bowl 60 absolutely throttled the New England Patriots to win their second Super Bowl championship at Levi Stadium, have poached a coach from Kyle Shanahan's staff to be their new offensive coordinator, replacing an offensive coordinator who coached under Kyle Shanahan. We'll get to that, but first a reminder, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Anytime there's breaking news, I always talk about it here on the show, and I'm giving you long-form Niners talk shows every single day year-round, on top of all the short-form content that I'm doing here on the channel, reaching millions and millions of people every single month. So if you want to stay in the know and be a part of a great Niners community amidst the faithful right here on YouTube, join the movement, hit that sub button as we're closing in on 200,000 subscribers. All right, this news just breaking moments ago. Mike Macdonald, the head coach for the Seahawks, who pitched a touchdown shutout against the Niners in the final two games against Kyle Shanahan, Week 18 and the divisional round, just won a Super Bowl last Sunday with Klint Kubiak as his offensive coordinator. Klint Kubiak in 2023 worked under Kyle Shanahan. His dad, of course, Gary Kubiak, used to work under Mike Shanahan. And Klint Kubiak has really ascended quickly in the coaching business. He was the OC for the Saints 2 seasons ago. And then Mike Macdonald made him the priority to be the Seahawks offensive coordinator in 2025. He goes to the Seahawks, and all season they had a top 5 offense. Sam Darnold played really well. The run game got going. There were some explosive plays in the pass game. Jackson Smith and Jigba led the NFL in receiving yards, and Klint Kubiak was so impressive with his play calling, his play designs, how he had the quarterback playing well, how he was able to elevate and maximize other players on that offensive roster, that he just became the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. And so after 1 year calling the plays, Seattle looking for a new offensive coordinator to replace Klint Kubiak. This is now going to be their third offensive coordinator in as many seasons. And look, the Niners had a coach poached. They had a coach taken from their staff. Niner fans know all about this. When you are one of the better teams in the NFL, when you have success, especially on offense with a generational type of coach in Kyle Shanahan, other teams are going to take your coaches. And so with Mike Macdonald winning a Super Bowl championship with Klint Kubiak, who hailed from the Kyle Shanahan tree, he is staying with a play caller from the Shanahan tree, giving Sam Darnold and the Seahawks offense some scheme and coaching continuity. Seattle is hiring Niners tight ends coach and run game coordinator Brian Fleury as their new OC. This came out of nowhere. Now, Macdonald, of course, is familiar with the Shanahan offense, and his defense this year became a legendary unit in recent NFL history, and he did such a great job of shutting down Kyle Shanahan's offense in the final 2 matchups, as I mentioned, Week 18 and the divisional round. And what Macdonald has done has been so impressive because he's basically eliminated the threat that pre-snap motion can give the defense, because usually when these offenses run pre-snap motion and these wide receivers or the motion man is trailed by a defender, that would signify that the defense is playing man. If that motion man was not trailed or covered with that pre-snap motion, that usually signifies, or used to signify, we're going to see a new league movement given Mike Macdonald's success, that the defense was in zone. And so Mike Macdonald stopped doing that because that was a telltale sign for what the defense was in. And Mike Macdonald's defense this past season did a great job of disguising what they were running post-snap, after the pre-snap movement. But it's pretty telling that Mike Macdonald has now gone with 2 coaches from the Kyle Shanahan tree because he knows the offensive scheme and system is a good one, and it's very effective. And this is a pretty big loss for this Niners organization, and losing Brian Flurry, who had been with this team over the last several years, learning under Shanahan. George Kittle has spoken very highly of Brian Flurry. You think about how he was able to develop Jake Tunchess over the last couple of years. He became a really good developmental story for this Niners organization. And I'm intrigued by this hiring for Seattle because They're bringing in a coach from the Kyle Shanahan tree who's never called plays, but Mike McDonald put a lot of value in a coach from the Shanahan tree to guide this offense into the future. And Flurry has a pretty interesting path as a coach. As a player, he played at Maryland and Towson. He played his high school football in Germantown, Maryland, so he stayed local in the DMV. He was undrafted in 2023 as a player. He did play the quarterback position when he was in college, and he's coached on both sides of the ball. So he got his start as an intern and grad assistant at Maryland. Then he became a secondary coach for Sacred Heart. And when he got into the coaching ranks, this is 2003, 2004. So Sacred Heart secondary coach. Then he was a defensive coordinator, secondary coach, and outside linebackers coach with Sacred Heart after that. Special teams coordinator and DBs coach for the Buffalo Bills. Quality control coach for the Cleveland Browns. Assistant linebackers coach with Cleveland as well. Outside linebackers coach was his first job with the Niners. That was back in 2019. Then from 2020 to 2021, offensive control coach. Then he became the tight ends coach starting in 2022. But clearly, he became a coach that was impressing Kyle Shanahan because in 2025, he elevated his role. He stayed at tight ends coach, but he earned the responsibility and the title of being the Niners run game coordinator. And I know that the 49ers running game hasn't really been that great the last 2 years. I think it's more of an offensive line problem compared to the scheme or the talent. We know that this scheme works and is effective in running the ball, but that background for Flurry is a very interesting one for Mike McDonald because he has been able to oversee a bunch of different positions, and he's been able to see the game from a lot of different perspectives on offense and on defense. So Brian Fleury, the new offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks in replacing Klint Kubiak, who worked under Kyle Shanahan back in 2023 for the Niners. I also want to get to this. So Dieter Kurtenbach of the San Jose Mercury News was on a live stream with Rob Stats Guerrera on the Gold Standard Network. And both those guys do a really good job. Obviously, myself and Stats have had some disagreements over time, but I will say that he does some good work on his YouTube channel. I'm glad that he's having success. And Dieter Kurtenbach does a really good job in covering the Niners. I always really enjoy when he does a live stream with friend of the show, Larry Kruger, who I join every single Friday on the Krug Show. But Dieter and Rob were talking about the Niners front office, and Rob brought up how John Lynch has had some misses as the general manager for the Niners, how he hasn't been a good GM because of all of the mistakes and some of the misses that the Niners have had as an organization. And I definitely see where Rob is coming from. I mean, after the Niners got bounced in the divisional round against the Seattle Seahawks, you saw the difference between the talent on the Seahawks roster and the Niners roster, and that's overall talent, that's depth, that's draft classes, free agency acquisitions by John Schneider, trade pieces that John Schneider has been able to bring in. There's a large gap. And I think the Niners have a lot of ground to make up in order to catch Seattle. And then you think about the Los Angeles Rams, also in the division, the NFC West. There's a gap between the Rams and the Niners on the personnel side. And after the Niners had lost that game, I threw out this possibility. Is it time for the Niners to move on from John Lynch as their general manager? He's a great guy. He's done some nice things as the GM of this Niners team. Him and Kyle, the Niners to having a lot of success. They made it to the Super Bowl in 2019, should have won. Made it to the Super Bowl in 2023, should have won. They made it to NFC Championship games in 2019, 2021, 2022, 2023. So the Niners have had a lot of success. That 2023 team is probably one of the most talented teams, or will go down as one of the best, most talented teams to never win a Super Bowl. But in the last couple of years, there have been a lot of misses in the draft for San Francisco, and really a lot has come in critical rounds, 1 through 3. And that's led to the Niners being in the position where they are now and where they were last year, where they had to eat over $100 million in dead cap. They let a lot of really good players go, but they had to have that reset year because they needed to build through the draft. And the 2024 draft, some decent returns. Jury is still out. The 2025 draft, I think it's shaping up to be a pretty solid one, but there have been a ton of misses late for San Francisco, which is why they lack high-end talent and they lack some depth. And that's why right now they're behind the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams. And one of my points was, while John Lynch has done a solid job and he's a great guy and he's a good face for the organization, he's the third best general manager in the NFC West. John Schneider is one. He's going to go down as one of the best GMs of all time. Right now, he's right alongside Howie Roseman as the two best GMs in the sport. And Les Snead is right behind John Schneider and Howie Roseman. And they're both definitely, Schneider and Snead, ahead of John Lynch. And I saw Larry tweet this out, and we were talking about this the other day, that the Niners have simply missed on too many draft picks. 10 misses in round 3 alone, 18 misses in the first 3 rounds since the 2017 draft. They have to hit in the draft more consistently. And so Dieter Kurtenbach, working off of what Rob Stats Guerrero had said, mentioned that there have been some conversations of John Lynch no longer being the GM for the Niners moving forward, and he would elevate to a position like, I don't know, president of football operations, right? Now, Dieter said some interesting things. Like, he said there have been some conversations that could happen, it couldn't happen. Like, who knows? We'll take him for his word that obviously he has some sources who are informing him and telling him that there have been some conversations about moving John Lynch out of the GM role. Who would step in? No idea. The Niners have a couple of internal guys that they really like. Josh Williams is one of them. He was one of the finalists for the Atlanta Falcons general manager job. If I'm the Niners, I don't really want to go with anybody internally. And I thought Krug made a really good point here. If you go internal, does that change the dynamic that you have? It's the same guys running the front office, but different titles and positions for those same people in the front office. I would go with somebody external from John Schneider's tree or Howie Roseman's tree. There are some GM candidates who are working with the Eagles right now who are extremely talented. And what the Eagles have done, 2 Super Bowl championships since 2017, 9 NFC championships since 2000, the most of any team in the NFC. Highly impressive. Say what you want about the Eagles, but they've arguably been the most successful team in the NFC since 2000. Nobody has more trips to the NFC championship game, and they've got the 2 Super Bowls since 2017. And that's on top of all the other success that they've had as an organization. And of late, they've done a great job hitting high in the draft. Howie Roseman is always so savvy with fleecing teams and trades. He's so cap savvy as well with some of the contracts that he's able to sign. The Niners have waited to sign some of their own players to these extensions, and they've cost themselves millions of dollars. Howie Roseman's strategy, on the other hand, is to get ahead of it and pay the players earlier compared to late to get ahead of market value. I was talking about this the other day. Howie Roseman hasn't used a franchise tag on a player since 2012. Like, it's just next level team building. So the NFL Combine is coming up very quickly. I'm in Minneapolis a week from today. John Lynch is supposed to speak with the media during the week of the NFL Combine. If the Niners are going to make a change at general manager, they better do it quickly, because you're going to be meeting with all of these draft prospects going into the 2026 draft. That's at the end of February into March is the Combine. Free agency starts on March 9th. Then the NFL draft is at the end of April. So if a move were to happen, if you're smart, the Niners, they better make it this upcoming week, right? Because you can't go into the Combine, free agency, and the draft and then make a change general manager. That's what bad organizations do. That wouldn't make any sense. Let the new GM come in and go about business as that new GM sees fit. The other thing with this too, Kyle Shanahan has probably the most say in the organization. But Kyle Shanahan also has a lot of control over personnel. And when head coaches, who are great head coaches, have control and full say over personnel, usually doesn't work out great. This happened with Andy Reid with the Eagles, where he was a great coach, had personnel say, Eagles dipped, and he realized it was too much. Bill Belichick, toward the end of his Patriots tenure, had way too much say as far as personnel. And the Patriots were missing constantly in the NFL draft. He was in over his skis. Coaching solely is a full-time job. Coaching and handling all personnel, that's way too much. Kyle Shanahan's a competitive cat. Kyle Shanahan's a very bright football mind. I can see why he wants to build a team and coach a team and take credit for that team winning a Super Bowl, but he hasn't won a Super Bowl. So something might have to change there. But interesting stuff nonetheless, and something that I pitched after the Niners got bounced in the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised if the Niners go this route. But if they go this route, I think it should be this upcoming week. All right, just wanted to hop on the mic, give you that Niners news here on this Sunday, February 15th. I'll be back in the studio tomorrow at Chat Sports HQ. Put a video out earlier today looking at some dream free agent Niners targets. So be on the lookout for that and watch that video as well. We continue to give you fantastic coverage right here on the show, and the grind doesn't stop. San Francisco 49ers report, and I'll catch you soon.